tonight is Jen Karetnick. She's the winner of the 2022 Cider Press Review Book Award for her newest book, Inheritance with a High Error Rate, which was published in January of 2024. It was selected by Lauren Camp. She's the author of 10 additional poetry collections, including the chapbook, What Forges Us Steel, the Judge Judy Poems, from Alternating Current Press in 2024. Her poems have won the Tiferet Writing Contest for Poetry, Split Rock Review Chapbook Competition, Hart Crane Memorial Prize, and Anna Davidson Rosenberg Prize, among other honors. And she has received support from the Vermont Studio Center, Wild Acres Retreat, Mother's Milk Artist Residency, Centrum, Artists in Residence in the Everglades, and elsewhere. She's the co-founder and managing editor of Swim Every Day. She was awarded an MFA in poetry from the University of California, Irvine, and an MFA in fiction from the University of Miami. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in the American Poetry Review, Atlanta Review, Bellevue Literary Review, Cimarron Review, Cold Mountain Review, Harper Palette, Missouri Review Poem of the Week, Notre Dame Review, Pleiades, Plume, Shenandoah, South Dakota Review, and Tar River Poetry. If you'd like to learn more about her, I'm going to put her website into the chat, as well as links to purchase some of her books. And I welcome Jen Karetnick. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Judy. It's such an honor to be here. And thank you, Michael. Thank you, Lenny, for founding the journal. Suzanne, it was so much fun to read with you finally, and to hear your voice, and to envy your hair officially. I always envy Suzanne's hair. I'll tell you a little bit about the book. This beautiful cover is actually Helen Apornsiri is the artist. I love this cover that my publisher found because it's actually made of flowers. So if you go on her Instagram, you'll see how she does this process. She finds seaweed and she grows her own flowers, and all of her images are made of these tiny pressed flowers. You can't tell it from the picture, but I do like to mention that and give the artist a shout out. This book is about my life on a mango farm, which was entirely accidental. When my husband and I bought the property, we thought it was going to be extremely romantic. And it turned out that we were farmers, and we lived there for almost 20 years. And we loved it, and we left it. And there's a lot of grief in that, and there's a lot of climate change, and there's a lot of midlife empty nesting. And there's also some poems about the untimely death of my brother, who was estranged from me. And I say it that way because I wasn't estranged from him. He made that decision on his own. So you'll hear some of all of that. And I'm going to start with one of my favorite poems in the book, which is the first one, about something about climate change. And you'll get it from the title. I commiserate with the pygmy octopus found in the Miami Beach parking garage. First time, I get it. In this place, it's inevitable to cling to cement like forgotten spaghetti in the bottom of the pot. Bottom dwellers, holders of the smallest hopes, we have so much in common. Always, it's a rude awakening to find yourself flush on the floor under the neon glare of a super beaver moon, the surging sea, a near distance, that uterine shed of toxic algae, the sick room stink sweeping in long before the scarlet feathered dawn, pushing you into a place you never thought you'd go. All three of your hearts were born to know what dying is, but this is different. Only air beats through your gills to replace their copper charges. Canary in the coal mine of climate change, marine biologists call you. Expect more sea creatures in dry places. Twitter sends recipes, sarcasm. This is from the city that brought the world a shark on the metro rail. Is it running for mayor? Harbinger or hoax, but alive when security scoops you into a bucket of salt water and deposits you home. The question is not, how long can you survive out of the ocean, but why should we have to see your blood to know how much bluer it runs? Thank you. I'm going to read a poem I wasn't expecting to read, but my sister-in-law brought it up today. I had sent her a book and told her there were poems about my brother in it, and she couldn't find them. So I had to tell her which ones they were. And then when she read them, she was like, "You wrote about him and mangoes? I don't get it." So I'm going to read this one. It's really about my nephew who came to live with us after my brother had passed because he wanted to get to know who we were. And this is called Yard Work. To mow the lawn, his only chore. He propped open his bedroom window with his stereo speakers, set the arm so the vinyl would repeat, and turned the volume louder than the sputter of gas chewing overgrown New Jersey grass. When Meatloaf screamed about a bat out of hell, the whole neighborhood knew my brother's allowance was being withheld, or he was about to get the belt. My sister and I used the clippers to trim the curved edges, even though we also dusted, vacuumed, cooked, and did the dishes, complaining about unfair divisions of labor one week to the dark side of the moon, the next to the grand illusion we're born to run. We were never allowed to choose the tunes. My sister grew up to go to Springsteen concerts with him. I was the one who would truly run from the Northeast, first to the daily warmth and minty evening breath of Southern California, then to Miami, moist mouth of the world, where grass doesn't grow under the mango trees that throw so much shade there isn't enough sun for such small blades, and where my brother never came to visit, preferring the green he grew in Greenwich and on Wall Street. After he died, his son found a job in South Florida and came to live with us for a time, learning the names and provenance of this fruit, how to tell the differences between a Carrie and a Beverly, between the mango that is not yet ready to be picked and the one that will be cast out on the driveway overnight if it is not, and how to eat a freshly caught Hayden over the garbage can or sink to save his suit. He volunteered to gather them, bringing in armloads like firewood, wandering around the patchy lawn as if it were a bocce court, one ear tuned to the buried beat of the tropics, the other still turned inward, an antenna vibrating with the silence his father left behind. Thank you. If we had waited another year to sell the house, it would have sold very quickly because it was an acre of land, but we did not wait a year because who knew the pandemic was coming. So we had a hard time selling this very specialized property because nobody wanted 14 mango trees. And we had to do a lot of things to actually get it ready for sale. And in the end, we decided to resort to superstition, things like throwing a fork in the river. And I don't know if any of you have done these things to sell your real estate, but we also wound up burying a statue upside down so that he would be uncomfortable and make him, make people want to come and buy the house. I don't know. We did all of these things. So this poem started from that ritual. It's called I Live at Ground Zero of the Climate Exodus, or How to Sell a Waterfront Home in Miami. With every king tide, the land loosens a little more around me, a floral caftan to wear after surgery. Underground, the concrete walls of the houses spall, crackling like cellophane. The iguanas seem strong now, flexing their tails and swimming in pools with typical arrogance, far more equipped to survive than I am. But one day, they will be cut off from the mainland, the distances too far to swim, the woolly mammoths of the millennial generation. Left to inbreed, their genes will become asteroids of their ancestors' making. It's too late for the maybe someday, the if or when day. Even the least honest realtors acknowledge where not to buy if you're local, which communities are a harder sell. These they peddle to half-timers who can afford to not have wind insurance or worry, who private jet away from storms into the peace of other primary residences, where peacocks don't stalk the roads, chevroned by dried saline, attracted to the fish and frogs left behind when the water recedes like a hairline, leaving its prickly evidence of once was. This is how it is to long for something I haven't even left yet, steeped in nostalgia like old tea leaves that have barely any hue and even less future to give. Like the beaches here, bony under mounds of the sargassum, smothering the sea turtles, the crabs and lobsters. Oh, the static interstitial species. How they too can't obey the logic to go when the draw is so magnetic to stay. Still, I plug the address of every available house into the FEMA Flood Map Service Center, bury St. Joseph upside down, near the for sale sign, pray that his discomfort in the dark will lead me to some kind of light, homes built on natural oolite ridges or manufactured rises, complete with impact windows and hurricane-proof doors. And every day watch the statue's feet get washed by the mother who is all of our toxic mothers, protrude a little more from the eroding ground, leaning inland, 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 where we will both be reborn as eventuality. And it worked because one day somebody came along and bought it. And it wasn't a developer who was ripping down all the trees. Although I understand they're a little surprised by all the mangoes. I can't help that. I will read, let's see. This is a poem about, I guess, leaving and my kids growing up. It's about the dog, but not really about the dog, which is why I continue to cry at odd moments, popping up in my day like advertisements on social media several weeks after we found her dead in her crate, a cold log of dachshund. The other two dogs who had slept there with her for 14 years, eager to scramble out and pee on the fallen toast of palm fronds outside, come back in to crunch kibble and take another nap, do all the normal dog things that they do, as if they didn't notice anything wrong. It's about how they knew, having curled around her body, sinking into that foreign place all night, but also about how they really didn't know or want to understand, how they look up at me now every time I walk in the door, my arms empty of her, then settle their heads on their paws with a single mutual sigh, and give her plot on the cushion the girth of a large belt. Or it's about how I project these feelings onto them, the loss, the space, the childhood she held in her comedian's body of both of my kids, and the length of time that we lived in this house, that we can now clean of her final traces to put on the market for a family with babies and different kinds of pets, who want an acre of yard with too many mango trees and scenery that Facebook identifies as India instead of Miami. It's about the mangoes, which the dachshund scavenged for only one season and inexplicably never ate again, but also not really about the mangoes, which I don't have energy to gather anymore. She preferred the half-rotten avocados anyway, sneaking over to the pair of trees marking the property line by the fence every time I let all three dogs out at night, coming back with a mottled shell of fruit in her snout, or the sugary sapodillas, brown as rats, rooting like a pig in the brush as if for truffles. It's about this nest, but also really not about this nest, emptying though not vacant yet, built by a raptor, though I am now a sparrow, or whatever kind of bird a bird of prey hunts. But I recall that raptor, how I still want to eagle the sky and look down on the world the way I did when I felt it owed me something enormous that I didn't have to earn or catalog or think about the day I would have to downsize it away. Thank you. I'm going to read two more poems from this book and then one new poem. This is an invented form that I created called An Evaporating Villanelle. And this is published in Limp Wrist by Dustin. And this is really about climate change, not about mangoes. Evaporating Villanelle for Algae Bloom. We all have secrets we would like to keep to ourselves. Sure, the sea is no different. The whole grave mass of it could cover up oil spills, plastics, but they spike into shape, those hourglass whirls to see in the distance. We all have secrets we would like to keep, but still resuscitate. Regrets lewd, a sour bite that shows up for tea. The whole grave mass of it could foul the interstitial brood with its vast swirl, its Milky Way. We all have secrets we would label scarlet tide or cease not. Endless whirl of dishonor, the whole grave mass of it. We fail to save with mere skimmers. This whole grave we all have. And I'm going to read the final poem. I actually do move into a new house at the end of this book. I'm not houseless, fortunately. And there's a lot of like interesting tidbits about this new house, but one of the things that the neighbors would kept telling us was that it was owned by a member of the Capone family. And the only thing that we can find that documents that is that there is a hidden gun closet. So we don't really know if this is true or not. But I put it in here because why not? It's kind of fun. This is called I Praise My Neighbors. It's a running title. I praise my neighbors who allow their engineered labradoodles and French bulldogs to urinate on the no pee signs staked into the balding pate of my front lawn, the citric liquid searing what's left of the grass day after day, who extend the leashes as far as the historic brick walkway clipped off like bangs halfway into the yard. I want to be brave as they are, watching their ornamental dogs' legs arabesque over the cast iron, silently castigating them in front of the crepe myrtle draped with the iron hippie hair of Spanish moss and the weeping crimson bottle brush, knotted by air plants, ribboned with hummingbirds. I applaud their camouflaged collective gaze, as impassive to criticism as a referee, how it pays no attention to me sitting less than 20 feet away in the window of the Tudor house that once belonged to the Capone family, where the attic is haunted by auburn and emerald iguanas jeteing from the top of the overgrown live oak. And I hide my jewelry, what little of it is left, my grandmother's opal rings stolen when I lived on South Beach, behind the false wall that once shielded shotguns. This courage, it is an unearned, misplaced brilliance. It is an ostentation of peafowl, bobbing down the middle of my suburban street, indifferent to the flocks of bicycles, imploring them to move, matching every bell and whistle with a war cry of their own, as mystified, perhaps, as all of us, the reason they are here, but certain of their right to stay. It is the sound I need to sample to rebroadcast in continuous 4-bar loops, rather than the jeweled good morning voice, the I don't like to make trouble when I'm new here voice, the I clean up the mess of my own dog's voice, instead of letting polished cymbals speak this message for me. And I'm just going to finish with a new one that South Florida Poetry Journal published, which is about my son who was a recent donor for his kidney. Something really brave that I admire him for that I don't know if I could ever do myself. This is called The Making of What's Left. Now that he is losing it, those handfuls of fine strands in his palm like pocket lint, my son asks me to teach him to style his hair, how to use a brush to straighten the curls instead of flattening them, like the rounds of dough he learned to fry with scallions while traveling in Asia. Now that he's losing it, the 5-year girlfriend gone as if she had never been, 4-year college done, the 2-year job in Austin To begin, the dermatologist confirming the fine strands in his palm, like pocket lint, is male pattern balding, and that tests have revealed that autoimmune disease lies in wait as it did for me at that age. My son asks me, teach me to style the cowlicks that warp his part, comma his forehead the way my older brothers did, who is forever younger than me now. His hair a brush that grows straight into earth. My brother was my son's godfather, but even that didn't heal what was wrong between us. We were too much alike, from the hair that needed brushes to straighten, to the comorbidities we both had to track like animal scat through our blood. My son holds the hairdryer as if it is his ex-girlfriend. I teach him to style from a left part, the same side where his kidney will be taken, for his childhood friend undergoing dialysis. The fine strands in his body filtered as if for lint 3 times every week. Universal donor, my son is scanned, probed, screened, finding out how to value his imperfect body now that he is giving away a handful of it. Thank you so much for listening. You guys were a very, very generous audience, and I appreciate it.